Israel has come with a new proposal to Hamas for a truce over Gaza, and it seems that both Saudi Arabia and the US are completely behind this and are weighing in heavily for Hamas to accept this peace deal. Hello out there and welcome to this week's edition of GeoPortfolio. My name is Mikkel Rosenvold and I'm head of geopolitics here at Steno Research. This is just a small glimpse of our analysis. If you want the entire package of geopolitical, macroeconomic and quant-based analysis and research, head over to stenoresearch.com and sign up for a free trial or perhaps just our free newsletter to receive weekly updates in your inbox. Let's get on with the show. Today we're focused on the Middle East once again, both on the Israel-Iranian situation and some interesting developments in the surrounding Saudi Arabia. Let's begin with the Israel-Iranian conflict that we've been talking a lot of on this show. It's all quiet between Israel and Iran. That's a question we get a lot. We get a lot of questions surrounding when's the next shoe going to drop? Basically, it has dropped. This conflict is, in my opinion, in my estimation, completely over by now. When I say completely over, obviously Israel and Iran will continue to be mortal enemies and rivals in this region, but the current spiral of confrontation and escalation has been handled just as we predicted. This is important when you're investing out there. Conflicts such as these and these very high-profile attacks between two major countries like this will often lead to short-term market volatility. But it's important to keep in mind that this is an area of the world where it's not uncommon to throw missiles around. So keep your cool and don't believe all the alarmists out there who say that this is World War III or that this is going to spiral into a wider regional conflict. Whenever these things happen, turn to stenoresearch.com for a cool head on things. The next topic, I'm not that cool about. I'm actually very, very intrigued by this. Let me just put up 3 observations for you, and then we'll make our conclusions. On Monday, U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken traveled to Riyadh as a part of his latest trip to the Middle East. He went to Amman, Jordan, and to Israel as well. That's the first observation. Second observation, on Wednesday, U.S.-based BlackRock announced the opening of a huge investment firm within Saudi Arabia, within Riyadh, initially worth $5 billion. This is obviously tied to the Saudi National Investment Fund and obviously tied to the Saudi 2030 plan and their efforts to draw in investments from especially the West. That's observation number 2. Observation number 3, on Thursday, Saudi Arabia decided to step up arrests of persons who have used social media to criticize Iran or to weigh in on the Hamas peace process. Now, what do I make of all these 3 observations? And there are more, by the way. It seems to me that the US and Saudi alliance is back. US and Saudi seems to be completely united on the approach to the Gaza truce. Israel has come with a new proposal to Hamas for a truce over Gaza, and it seems that both Saudi Arabia and the US are completely behind this and are weighing in heavily for Hamas to accept this peace deal. We are hearing reports that Qatar and Egypt, the other main players in the Cairo talks, are very much behind this proposal, which they think is very generous on the Israeli side. So the US and Saudi is back on the same page, even though the Saudi Arabians are having a tough time balancing the internal support for the Palestinian cause. This is a very important first step. These developments signals to me that the US and Saudis are hell-bent on restarting the Israel-Saudi normalization process. Remember, this process was both about providing security guarantees for Israel, but just as much about providing investment, Western investment for Saudi Arabia, hence the BlackRock deal, and also about managing Israel's position or solidifying Israel's position in the Middle East. The US main goal in all this is obviously to be able to pivot away from the Middle East, which they've been trying to ever since Barack Obama was elected. A major cornerstone in the US efforts to disengage from the Middle East is to build up new security infrastructure for Israel. And a huge part of that would be an alliance with Saudi Arabia. The first step in that direction is a normalization process between Israel and Saudi. That was well underway a year ago, up until the October 7th attack, which obviously derailed this process entirely as the Palestinian cause returned to the forefront of Middle Eastern politics. Now it seems at least that the Saudi Arabian government has decided to replace the Palestinian cause as their main focus point and re-engage with Israel and the US over this. Why are the Saudis doing this? Obviously to attract Western investments into all their mega projects, the Neom City, the Mile City, all those projects. They need a lot of Western money for that. And they need also the expertise that they can draw in from BlackRock. We know that the Saudi Public Investment Fund is also planning to sell off more shares to Western investment firms such as BlackRock in an attempt to draw these companies closer to the Saudi government, which is obviously working. But that process is intrinsically linked with the Saudi Arabians normalizing their relationship with Israel. The US and the West cannot get fully behind this investment spree in Saudi Arabia unless Saudi is on board with Israel and are working towards a more stable environment in the Middle East. And this leads me to point number 3, the third part of the Israel-Saudi normalization process, which is oil. That's what the US stood to gain from all this. Israel stands to gain security guarantees. Saudi Arabia stands to gain Western investments. US stands to gain increases in Saudi oil productions. Saudi Arabia has developed closer ties with China and Russia, has attempted to draw Russia into the OPEC group, and have more or less unilaterally decided to cut oil production over the past years. This is a huge problem for the US in many ways. The US is almost self-sufficient on oil, so for a purely egoistic or isolationist viewpoint, the US could be indifferent about this. But the oil market is global and the energy market is very global. So lower Saudi oil production hits the US and hits the US allies in Europe very, very hard. And it also influences on the battleground in Ukraine, because higher oil prices is obviously very, very positive for Putin's Russia. So the third part of this is oil, and that's where you come in as investors. If this Israel-Saudi normalization process is back on track, we must expect a part of that to be a US-Saudi deal on the renewal of or renewed increases to Saudi Arabian oil production. And that's very, very interesting for the oil price over the coming quarters. The downside to this, or the risks to this, are also significant for Saudi Arabia. We know, as I mentioned earlier, that the populations of Saudi Arabia, but also the other Arab countries, are still very much pro-Palestine and pro-Hamas. And this issue is weighing heavily. So the Saudi Arabian government, Mohammed bin Salman, is taking some risks here. I'm sure he has a lot of internal dissent on this topic, also within the royal family. But at the end of the day, what's most important for Saudi Arabia is to keep drawing in all those Western money. After all, why did they spend so much money on golf tournaments and the Football World Cup? Just to waste all that Western goodwill on the Palestinian-Israeli cause. That was my main take this week. I've written a great game earlier this week where I cover the Trump trial, the Indian election, and also Israel-Iran conflicts. If you want to read that, head on over to stenoresearch.com and look for my great game article. And to keep posted on all our geopolitical analysis, make sure to subscribe to this channel and check out my Twitter as well at RosenwaldGeo. Thanks a lot for watching this GeoPortfolio. We'll be back next week with more geopolitics relevant to your portfolio.